They say insomnia is just your brain refusing to shut down, a biological glitch. But I don't think that's true. I think insomnia is a survival instinct. I think the body keeps you awake because it knows that if you close your eyes, you might miss the moment the world changes. I've been an insomniac for 3 years. I know the texture of the ceiling above my bed better than I know my own face. I know that the strat lamp outside flickers exactly every 42 seconds. I know the digital clock on my nightstand is the only light source in the room, a glowing red mockery of my exhaustion. It happened on a Tuesday, or maybe Wednesday. The days bleed together when you don't sleep. It was 3:13 a.m. I was staring at the clock, waiting for the numbers to flip to 3:14. I watched the colon blink, on, off. I waited, and I waited, but the number didn't change. I blinked, thinking my eyes were playing tricks on me. I counted seconds in my head. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 10, 20. The clock stayed at 3:13. The colon stopped blinking. It remained lit, a solid, unmoving red dot. The hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen cut out. The sound of the wind rattling the window pane ceased instantly. The silence that fell over the apartment wasn't just quiet. It was absolute. It was the silence of a photograph. I sat up. The sheets didn't rustle. The air in the room felt thick, like clear gelatin. I swung my legs out of bed and stood up. I walked to the window and looked out. We live on the 4th floor, overlooking a busy avenue. Even at 3 a.m., there's usually a taxi or a delivery truck. There was a taxi directly below. It was driving through a puddle. The splash of water was frozen in midair, a crown of dirty crystal rising from the tire. The driver was visible through the windshield, his mouth open in mid-yawn, frozen. A pigeon was suspended outside my window, its wings at the top of a downstroke, defying gravity. "Hello?" I said. My voice didn't echo. The sound fell out of my mouth and died immediately on the carpet. The air didn't carry it. I walked out of my bedroom. My roommate, Sarah, was in the living room. She had fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on. On the screen, a news anchor was frozen with a grimace, scan lines distinct and unmoving. I waved my hand in front of Sarah's face. Nothing. Her chest wasn't rising or falling. She wasn't breathing. Panic started to rise in my throat, hot and sharp. I ran to the front door and threw it open. The hallway was empty, but it wasn't just empty. It was gray. The color seemed to have been drained out of the world, replaced by a monochrome blue-gray tint. I ran down the stairs. I burst out onto the street. It was a museum of the instant. People frozen mid-step, smoke hanging like sculptures from cigarettes. But then, I saw that I wasn't alone. 3 blocks down, near the intersection, something was moving. At first I thought it was another person, maybe another insomniac like me. I started to run toward them, desperate for contact. Hey, can you hear me?" I stopped dead when I got closer. It wasn't a person. It was tall, impossibly tall and thin, like a stick figure drawn with charcoal. It had no clothes, just a surface that looked like matte black static. It had no face, just a smooth indent in the shape of a thumbprint where a head should be. It was standing over a frozen homeless man on a bench. I hid behind a mailbox, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would restart the flow of time. The entity leaned down. It extended a long, needle-like finger and touched the homeless man's forehead. The man didn't wake up. Instead, he began to smudge, like wet ink being wiped off a page. His outline blurred. Then his colors faded to gray. Then he simply dissolved into the air, turning into a fine mist that the entity inhaled through the skin of its face. The man was gone. The bench was empty. The entity straightened up. It swiveled its head. It didn't have eyes, but I felt the weight of its attention land on me. It didn't run. It glitched. 1 second it was at the bench. The next it was 10 feet closer, appearing in a burst of static. Glitch. 10 feet closer. Glitch. I turned and ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away from the smudge. I scrambled back into my building, slamming the heavy lobby door. I sprinted up the 4 flights of stairs, my lungs burning, but the air I inhaled provided no relief. It was dead air. Stale. I fumbled with my keys at the door, dropping them. Glitch. I looked down the hallway. The entity was at the top of the stairs. It was so tall it had to hunch over to fit under the hallway lights. Its limbs were too many joints long. I grabbed the key, shoved it in, and threw myself inside, locking the deadbolt. I backed away from the door, grabbing a kitchen knife from the counter, though I knew it was useless. There was no sound of footsteps outside, no pounding on the door, just the silence. I watched the gap under the door. A shadow fell across it. Then the door began to dissolve. Not break, erase. The wood turned to gray mist, swirling away to reveal the black static form standing in the hallway. It stepped into the apartment. It looked at Sarah on the couch. "No!" I screamed. I lunged at it. It swatted me aside like a fly. I hit the wall, but I didn't feel pain. I felt cold, a numbness spreading from where it touched me. It loomed over Sarah. It reached out that long needle finger. "Please," I begged, trying to crawl across the floor. "Take me instead. She's sleeping. She doesn't know." The entity paused. It turned that thumbprint face toward me. It spoke, but not with words. It spoke by vibrating the bones in my skull. The awake are flaws. It resonated. The sleeping are fuel. It turned back to Sarah. It touched her forehead. I watched as my roommate, my best friend, turned into gray smoke. In a second, she was gone. The couch cushion rebounded as if she had never been there. The entity turned back to me. It raised its hand. I squeezed my eyes shut. I waited for the erasure. I waited to become mist. Click, a sound. A real sound. The hum of the refrigerator roared back to life. The wind rattled the window pane. I opened my eyes. The entity was gone. The door was solid wood, locked tight. The gray tint had vanished, replaced by the warm yellow light of the hallway lamp. I looked at the clock. 13 till 14 om morgenen. 1 minute had passed. I looked at the couch. It was empty. The blanket was folded neatly over the armrest. I ran to Sarah's room. Her bed was made. Her clothes were gone from the closet. Her pictures were gone from the walls. I grabbed my phone to call her parents. I scrolled through my contacts. There was no Sarah. I went to my photo gallery. Pictures of us at the beach, at graduation, at the diner. I was alone in all of them, standing with my arm around empty air, smiling at nothing. I sat on the floor and cried. I cried until the sun came up. Nobody remembers her. To the world, she never existed. She was erased in the hour between seconds, cleaned up like a spill on the timeline. I'm still awake. I haven't slept in 3 days. I bought 6 alarm clocks. I have them all set to different times. I'm terrified of 3:13 a.m., but I'm more terrified of falling asleep, because the thing told me the truth. The sleeping are fuel, and if I close my eyes, I know that when the world freezes again, I won't be there to see it coming.